This isn't going to be the gotcha video you might think it is. That's it. That's my intro. I'm Amanda, you're watching Swell Entertainment, and there's a couple of things that I want to touch on and address before I just jump into showing you the discussion that me and Michael Weist did. So first and foremost, why is this happening now? Well, for those of you who don't know, I went on the Dr. Phil show a couple months ago. We actually recorded that episode back in October, and Michael was the subject of the video, and I was one of the people brought on to confront him specifically as my role of an Tanacon attendee, which is an event that happened in 2018. A lot of people were asking why. We get into why this is happening now in the interview itself, but that is how this all got started in motion. After the episode finally aired in May, I made a video on it addressing things that were cut out, my experience with the Dr. Phil show, some things that I felt were factually incorrect about the episode, and I addressed those. So the same day my video came out, Michael messaged me a screenshot of text messages between him and Tana from 2018, April of 2018. I watched part of your recent video, let's talk. There's a text showing we were planning in April, lots of misinfo. I still have every text with Tana, the original trademark application, which I paid for in 2018. Let's chat. I'd love to get on a call and actually set the record straight. I said, hey, I'd love to chat 100%. And I'm not doubting the validity of the text messages with you and Tana. If anything, it just shows that you were planning 2 months in advance instead of 1. But again, I would love to talk and to clear everything up. And then he said, what's your email? I'll have Casey set something up. Send my email. Can't wait to chat. And then that was the 31st of May. And then I was like, okay, I'm waiting. And then I forgot. And then COVID happened again, and 2 members of my family got COVID, and I was dealing with that. And then I was caring for one of them, and I was like, you know what? I should just get this done, because if we wait till 2022, people are going to lose their minds. So I messaged him in August. Hello, never heard from you or Casey, and would still love to chat. And then he was like, okay, terribly sorry, I'll email you. And he emailed me, and we had a very, I would say, productive back and forth over email. His whole goal with messaging, he said again, like, I don't want to relive the past. I just want to set the record straight. And I said, I understand, but explained how, you know, you are still working in the creator industry, and this was a creator event and a social media event that is still fairly recent in social media history and is still referenced pretty regularly. So I don't think we can like treat it as like a past event. Like it's not something that happened 20, 30 years ago. This is something that happened within the last 5 years. And I mentioned how he said that there was misinfo in my video. And I said, well, I, as someone who attended the event and someone who has access to Google and the internet, I only have access to the information that is made available to me. Same with everyone else on the internet. And so since you and Tana and everyone else involved in this event is not explaining the details or telling the truth, we only have to go off of what's available, and we have to operate under the assumption that this is true. So if you really do have proof that all of this timeline is wrong or whatever, let's sit down and hash it out, and then you have it done. And so Michael agreed, and so we took a lot of back and forth getting it nailed down, and then we finally had our conversation. Michael's whole thing was that he didn't just want to get on a call and be screamed at, and I am not that type of interviewer, okay? The Dr. Phil show, again, edited, I was being produced, he was being produced. He was also blindsided. We talked about a lot about the Dr. Phil episode in our call. We talked for over 2 hours. We talked for a long time. And, you know, I just said, look, I'm not Tana, I'm not Shane, and I'm not Dr. Phil, but I'm going to have questions if I find things that you mentioned that either there's no proof of or there's factual inconsistencies. Like, I'm going to question things. And he's like, I understand that and all that. I just don't want to be screamed at. And I'm like, again, not going to do that. And I extend the same option I extended to Russell Hartley, who was the TikTok dating coach that I interviewed last year. I said, look, I did this live with him, so he knew there was no shenanigans with the editing. And he was like, okay, I understand why this could be an issue with the editing, but like, I have receipts, I have screenshots, I have proof of things, and I would really like for you to be able to, if we discuss them, you can add those in editing, which is why we ended up doing this over Google Meet, and I recorded everything. But that is why this interview is not live. We decided to do it this way so that he could send me documents and things, and I could add them in to show you as they come about. For the most part, a lot of this footage is going to be mostly unedited. That's how I want it to be. And I will also be including the full unedited, uncut interview portion for probably the podcast. That way it's just like a set 2-hour block of time, so you understand what's going on a little bit more. If there's anything missing, you can go check that out there. Again, this isn't like a big gotcha moment. I'm not sitting there cackling and giggling because I got one over on Michael Weist. That's just not what's happening. And I explained to him in the interview, you know, if Tana or anyone else involved in this event, because he did drop a lot of names, if anyone else wants to reach out, I will extend the same courtesy to them as I did to Michael. And the same goes for anyone that I make a video on. You know, if you ever want to confront me, I get that you want to clear your name or do whatever. We can always do the same situation or, you know, a live stream, Russell Hartley style. So Without further ado, here is my interview / discussion with Michael Weist of Tanacon and Juice Crate.
I'm happy to do this. Obviously, you have been a critic of mine over the years, which is fine. You know, I don't often agree to these things given the nature that like a lot of them tend to have, but I'm excited about an honest and candid conversation. I'm happy to answer anything.
I'm glad that you were even open to speaking with me. I know that it's though criticism is a part of the internet and being a public figure, I know how difficult it is to, I guess, confront someone or even just like follow through. Like it's easy to just block and take off. And I respect that you reached out and were like, here, I had some issues with your video. There's some misinformation. Would like to talk and break this down. I do appreciate that. And I want to acknowledge that.
And I think that there is obviously a plethora especially over the years. There's been a lot of videos out there, and I have genuinely just tried to kind of ignore it for my own mental health. But I'm finally at a point in which I can address it, and like have decided that staying silent is not always the best option, even at the advice of others. You know, they're just like, it'll pass. But I don't know if that's true, and I'm like happy to address anything, and I'm like emotionally and mentally ready. So yeah. And obviously, given Dr. Phil and everything else, you kind of started, I think, with like a lot of this Tanacon thing. So you seemed like the perfect person to agree to do this with. I never took like Keemstar or anything else other than Shane.
We did the Dr. Phil episode back in October. And then my producer told me it was supposed to come out in around February, but then it got pushed for some reason. And then it ended up coming out in May. Was that frustrating for you? Because they mentioned that you were the one that you were the one that reached out. So was that frustrating for you that they were still drawing it out?
Yes. Obviously, like time is a big part of a lot of healing and everything else. When I filmed, it was like a substantial amount of time had passed. And according to the producers, which we'll get into early or later, I suppose, because I went on that show for literally a whole different reason. But they ultimately said it was going to be the biggest episode, and they just kept drawing it back. And I was like, okay, guys, this is going to like affect my business. Anytime I talk about this, obviously, as someone currently in the space, every time I bring it back up, it affects my business. So like, absolutely. Not to mention, like, if you read my LA Times piece, I got diagnosed with PTSD. And so like, it is emotional to go through a lot of this. And yeah, frustrating to say the least. I didn't know it was going to take that.
Yeah. So, well, since we're on the topic, my original question was going to be, what did you want to accomplish with going on Dr. Phil? But I mean, I guess a better question would be, what exactly did you reach out to them for if you say that you went on for something completely different?
That is a good question. So long story short, obviously through Tanacon, I had always seen like online bullying through others and with clients. And I talk about it in Jawline a little about just like the space that internet, it used to be like a place of safety and community, and it's like become something very different now, which is rather dark, I suppose. But I went on Dr. Phil to basically just like, how do I say this? My dad's assistant had a sister who was like 13 years old, and she actually ended up committing suicide due to online bullying, and that's something that like really struck with me. Obviously, as I was like seeing everything that was happening, it's hard not to read all the comments that are like, kill yourself. And I was in a very dark place at one point. And so I just kind of wanted to like help. I thought I was literally going on to like bring awareness to online bullying. Yes, I thought Tanacon would be like hit on. No idea that like that was the case. Also, like, you mentioned in your video a lot of the producers talking about like I was horrible to deal with. I didn't get paid for anything, not in my footage. Like, I literally thought I was going on to help, nothing more than that. I wasn't allowed to bring guests on. Like, I wasn't allowed to have even like my best friends there. It was a very different experience than I think what was portrayed to everyone else, which is interesting. And like my producers came to me after the show in tears. I was literally crying. A lot of things happened after Dr. Phil walked off stage. All of those guests literally followed me outside the studio and we're coming to your hotel, we're fucking killing you. They literally came to my hotel. Dr. Phil had to have security there. It was like a whole thing.
Oh, Jesus.
So like, it was a very traumatic experience in itself.
Yeah.
And I don't even think the producers expected it to go that way, because like they literally texted me yesterday asking if I wanted to put influencers on Wednesday's episode, which I guess is today, or some other things. So like, I literally had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I probably should have had maybe the courage to just like get up when I realized it was not what I thought it was, and leave. But I don't know that would have been the right answer either. I guess I just wanted to like heal in that moment. And then as Dr. Phil's asking questions, obviously, you know, editing is everything.
Absolutely.
They edited pre-interviews, everything. It just like very felt, oh, this is Tanacon. This is 100% Tanacon. I thought it was not necessarily going to be that. I figured they would ask about it and like my history with like dealing with the bullying part of it. Nope, not at all. So like that was very, very shocking to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I pointed out in my video, I don't know if you watched the full video or just the segment before you reached out to me, but I did point out how they did do you dirty in the edit, at least, because what it looks like for our interaction is where you bring up, I came on here to get justice for a little girl who is contemplating suicide. And when you're watching it, as the viewer, it looks like that came out of nowhere because they cut out that segment in the start where you talked about why you came on. And I was like, that wasn't fair. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah. And it felt like, you know, I think they put that in there to be like, oh, Michael's just trying to be defensive. I was literally defensive because I was blindsided. I had no idea that's what I was going. The audience was like all Tanacon attendees, had no idea. I thought it was going to be me and Dr. Phil talking about online bullying. Nothing remotely even close to that conversation even came up. It wasn't even about like my experience with it. It was just, here's a bunch of people saying a bunch of things and you react to it. And I like should have gotten up looking back at it. But everything, even Tanacon, I'm grateful that it, as weird it is this to say, I'm like grateful that it happened the way it happened because it made me who I am now and I learned so much. So like I don't know that I would have changed the Dr. Phil experience. Obviously, it wasn't like what I thought, and it wasn't what I was hoping for. But everything happens for a reason, and I guess I have to believe that. So for that, I'm grateful. Definitely showed me like Phil Shaw, who was on the show, was my creative director for 4 years. Literally 2 months prior to that, was at the Grammys with me. It just like showed me people's true colors, and that was shocking to see and a little hurtful and like painful, but important. I thought I learned all of that through Tanacon, but I learned it even more. So, and I don't know. I'm definitely grateful to have learned that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about, we can talk about the producer situation because, again, in my video, I don't know if you caught this part, my producer was very big on getting me to come for you. And
I saw that.
She could have told me that you kicked a puppy backstage, and I still knew how I was going to approach you depending on how things were shown or edited. And obviously, like you mentioned, the edit plays a part in things, but that's also how they could have potentially amplified me. Yeah, it's TV, and they wanted good TV. If I were to come out there and be like, yes, Michael, I accept your apology, of course. Like, that's, to them, that's not good TV.
Totally. And Hulu told me not to do it. They're going to sensationalize it. And I was like, well, what does that mean? If I can help one person not go through, like, what I went through, it's worth it. And I talked about it with my family before and was like, Mom, obviously, I don't know that I want to do this. I don't want to bring it up. It did affect current relationships with clients and stuff, obviously, because that's a headline. And it wasn't a good headline. But, like, even if it helped one little girl, still, I think it might be worth it. That was my whole, like, I'm going to go on this. Maybe someone out there will resonate with it. It wasn't about trying to do something else. I literally had no idea. And, like, I was surprised in your video when you said that the producer said I was horrible because, like...
Yeah, I was going to ask about that next because...
Literally so many texts and emails of, like, Julie and Amy and everyone being like, you are the best person we've ever worked with. We've worked with so many influencers. They're horrible. We love you. They all came into my room after the show crying. Literally, they texted me yesterday asking if I'll help staff their next show. Like, I was shocked. They told me, which I literally have, that like Phil Shaw asked them to verify them 7 times, and he obviously mentioned that on the show. And I never spoke about Dr. Phil other than making my statement because oftentimes it doesn't matter what I say. The people are just gonna, I think, and at some point you can't defend, and you shouldn't necessarily defend every single thing. Also, Dr. Phil has a pretty extensive release, which I'm sure you've seen, and I think I'm prohibited for talking about a lot of things on the show. So I never said I'm gonna go talk about this experience, but like it fucked me up a little bit, to be frank. I was in a process of like healing, and then that really reset me back, not to mention like going back to my hotel and then being attacked and like getting further death. I was literally crying on the lot at Paramount, literally bawling my eyes out. Interns are running up, turning cameras away. I was like, I'm not doing this. Dr. Phil wanted to film that and put that on TV, and I was like, absolutely not. It felt very strange. And Dr. Phil, that's why Dr. Phil left the stage. I don't know if they like told, it was supposed to be like a 3-hour filming session, and it was literally 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, I know our segment between you and I, and then your current client, or at the time current client, I don't know if he's still your client, segment was, I want to say, close to 45 minutes, and then you guys were talking for probably definitely a shorter amount of time than I was expecting. I was expecting maybe an hour or two. But yeah, I don't know why he walked off when he did, because even if you're watching the episode as a viewer, it looks like there's more. Like, it looks like it wasn't, nothing really was resolved.
Absolutely wasn't. And Dr. Phil wanted us to resolve it outside. He was like, you guys talk. And I was like, I'm literally bawling, like way worse than on stage, shaking. I don't think I've cried that much in like a long time. And I was just like, Jackson's coming up screaming, fuck you. Phil's coming. Like, they're literally all screaming at me. And I'm just sulking on the sidewalk because I was so blindsided. But it is what it is. And like, again, grateful that I guess I got to learn their true colors. Wasn't expecting that. Those are people that like from the past, you know, Sydney was at Tanacon, and the last time we spoke was right after. I literally, like, they could all have their phones because they were all posting in the dressing room. I couldn't have my phone. I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't have guests on the show. I felt very like taken aback, and I probably should have listened to my team at Hulu and my publicist and everyone, but I thought maybe one little person out there, one little girl will be impacted and be like, you know what, today is not the day that I'm going to do something stupid, because there is someone out there that at least recognizes or cares, you know. So like, that's why I did it. And I think it might have gotten taken wrong, because I got a lot of like hate that I was just trying to use Tanacon for this, that, and the other. Literally, no. I didn't even know that was a thing. So it's crazy to see that they like portrayed it that way. Yeah,
no, I understand. But I mean, obviously they did the interview segments prior to actually going on the stage. So you knew they were probably going to bring up Tanacon at the very least, right? So
I figured, like, you talking about the interview videos? That,
like, like the segments they played beforehand.
Yeah, and I figured those would be used as like background. You don't really know until you see it. But I, like, the first time I saw that video was when I was walking on the stage, and I was like, oh my God. Then I walk out, and I was like, if you see in the first moments I'm like shaking talking to Dr. Phil, I was like, oh, what is about to happen? This is not what I thought this was. And every break, I don't know. I probably came off defensive because I felt a little attacked, to be honest. I didn't expect that at all. So I came off as defensive, which, and I don't know. I'm like, yeah, looking back on it, it happened for a reason, I guess. And maybe it impacted. I'm hoping it did some good for someone out there, because it definitely was to no benefit of my own.
As far as the intro interviews that they played, that the Tanacon segments were from, how long would you say those interviews actually were, that, like, just trying to figure out, like, what exactly they pulled from, essentially, for the Tanacon stuff?
So those were, like, that was a whole day prior to the shoot. They went to this set and filmed all of that, and they like just asked me a bunch of questions in this like room, and I'm just answering them. And then we filmed like what they called ad roll clips, like where I'm walking on my phone, like things that they could use to run ads for the show, I guess. Which I had like done before, obviously with Hulu and everything else, pretty used to it. And then I don't know, I mean, like, I didn't know how long it would be or how long it was going to be used or what anything was going to look like. And I felt very safe, because the producers that I was working with, I was like, understand that like my heart is in your hands here. Like, it's a lot.
Do you think they were producing you at all the same way that potentially mine was producing me?
Probably, but like also no, because they were telling me things that they shouldn't have told me either, and like text things that would have indicted them on, like, you know, they could have lost their jobs over things that they were saying, which to me was like, okay, but maybe that was part of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I was naive. I don't know. It felt authentic enough.
Yeah.
But I will say this. When I was filming those pre-interviews, my attorney called me literally in the middle of filming them and is like, just so you know, Tana has called her attorney, who's called me, and does not want you to do this show, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I told him, I said, listen, if it helps one girl out there, it's worth it. Tana can go say what she wants to say. She always will. She always does. But like, I'm not here for me. I'm not here for whatever. I'm here for that little girl out there who's struggling. And I literally have been there and never want anyone to go through that again. So that was like the whole thing. But it felt, I don't know, they all witnessed that. So to me, it felt like they kind of knew what was going on. They were very like, maybe that was being produced, perhaps. But my producer experience at like Hulu and stuff felt very different. It's like becoming more relevant in our like society every day. And it's like getting bad. It's like low key really dark that social media gets younger and younger, and these young girls are like living their lives online and dealing with, you know, growing up in front of a camera. And there's like no boundary that society is making when they're like doing this whole cancel culture. And like, you can't cancel a human being, in my opinion. I think that's like really gross. People evolve and learn every single day. And a little 12-year-old girl who posted a TikTok that she did not know any better about should not be killing herself because she's getting some hate online. Like, we're not that gone, I hope.
Dr. Phil mentioned that you had given them a list of people, and that's who they drew the guests who came on, and then also your current client from, I believe. Was there anyone else that you had on there that you had felt you were expecting to see and they didn't have on, or?
Well, I didn't really, like, they said I gave them a list, but like they asked for very specific people. I wonder if I can find it.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
I know I gave them Phil Shaw. I guess they had called me because there's like two threads of me back and forth. And I said, hey, Julie, as requested, here's my client Blake's contact info. And I said, if of value, my former COO, Taylor, whom I think wrote into the show, said that she would talk. And she said, okay, I'll give him a call this evening. Like that was like it. And they did their own, I guess, outreach. Because I had asked like my friend Hannah, she's also still very close friends with like Tana. She's not really in the industry. She was like with me in LA at the hotel after everything happened. She was at Tanacon. Like she's been on both sides. She was in the room with playing. I think she's even in my like Amazon doc, just in the background. They wouldn't let her even go to the show and watch. Like my mother couldn't go. It was like, we have 6 guests. And I was like, okay. And she's like, well, you can't have any guests because of COVID. And I'm like, she's like, with you, Dr. Phil, Dr. Phil's wife, with our crew, you can't have anybody watch. And I was like, okay. I mean, I guess I get it. It's COVID. Like, I get it. Had no idea that, like, they were going to line up all these people. And they asked for someone who would, like, give a objective stance, which I said, Phil. Even though Phil and I are friends, I expected him to be, you know, honest and say whatever. Which he was very silent during the episode, which was interesting to me. And he texted me afterwards, which is also interesting. And before, like, sending me black hearts, which I didn't see till after the show because I didn't have my phone. And like, that's it. I gave him Phil, Taylor, and Blake, but that's because they asked specifically for those people. I wish I could have given, like, there's probably people that I watched the show with. My friend Cody, who's a former influencer, he would like watch the episodes when they aired with me. I was like, why would they not call me? I would have went on. I was at Tanacon. He was on the creator list. Like, there's a lot of people that I felt, I don't know. There was clearly a target, like a goal for filming that episode. And
they tried to get Tana. I know that because she tweeted that they had reached out to her and she said no. So
yeah. And they had asked me if Shane was okay. I was like, yeah, I don't care if you contact Shane. I'm sure Shane's down. And like, they just kind of did whatever they wanted to do. I was like, why are you going to call Shane? I thought we were going on for this. It felt very, you know, weird. And that's when like I became wary. But ultimately, I guess they just felt that the storyline that the others were giving was more interesting for TV, probably. I just want to say that, like, I know in your video you had mentioned, like, you got paid for your footage. I did not ask for any compensation on anything, simply because, I wasn't there for money, for financial gain. So I want to make sure that, like, I don't know, I didn't go on there for what people tend to think. So I just wanted to mention that, like, I gave them anything that they wanted, did not ask for payments, did not ask favors. I know they said that I was like being demanding. I'm trying to think what else you mentioned in your video.
Yeah.
They asked me if I would cover up my tattoos and piercings, and I was like, no, because that's me, and I'm not gonna like filter myself if you want to talk about something on TV. But I was by all means They asked, I think you mentioned something about water. Like I literally did not have food or water in the dressing room. I didn't ask for food or water. I literally went off set and had lunch before the show. So it felt all very like, I don't know.
I was being produced is what they were doing with me. So that's which is why I shared in my video. It was like, this could all be false, but like, this is what I was told, basically. What they originally reached out to me for was to license my vlog footage. So that was their whole, they wasn't asking me to come on as like a Tanacon attendee or anything like that. I was like, I said, look, because they didn't tell me it was you. They just said they were doing an episode on Tanacon. And so I said, okay, I have questions about the event. I thought it was going to be Tana or something. I was like, I would confront Tana in a second. And also I'm in Orange County. I'm less than an hour away. Like I can come to the studio. It's fine. And so because I have previously licensed footage to MTV for Tana's show, in fact, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be on TV. So we're going to get more money.
As you should. Absolutely.
Yes.
But the reason I say that is just because like I did not do it for that. So I don't want people to think that like I went on there to get a bunch of royalties. Obviously I've licensed footage. Hell, I sold a documentary to Hulu. But
yeah.
Like, that wasn't the intention, therefore I didn't. And you should get your coin. Absolutely, you should. Props to you for being savvy enough to know that you should do that.
I had asked my producer, can I bring up about how there's a possibility he's going to do another Tanacon? And my producer said, go ahead. I said, okay, can I ask if he's worried about being sued because of it? And they said, go right ahead. Anything you want to ask. And then they cut out that whole interaction between you and I. About
which I'm happy to address. I don't know if you have like an agenda you want to go through. But.
No, we can absolutely. This was another thing I wanted. I was going to wait a little longer, but I was like, we're on the topic. We might as well, bring it up.
So like, I have never, and probably plays into like our conversation on the show about like the trademark and everything else. I guess let me start with like maybe the trademark because I think that probably plays some backstory. And I wonder, I'm sure I have it somewhere.
Okay.
So trademark takes a long time to get. I know you mentioned that like the date was conspicuous.
April. Yeah, it was in April 2020. And I don't know if you remembered, I had reached out to you when that got publicized and when the Instagram account went live and the website was like available, but it was behind a lock, a password. And apparently someone who runs a fan account for you was like taunting me on Twitter, like no one knows what the real answers are. So I was like, okay, I reached out to them and I said, tell me what the deal is. And they had apparently either gotten the password from you or had figured it out and told me that, like sent me screenshots of the website and stuff. And it was like, yeah, no, Tanacon is happening. It's just like a work in progress right now and all of that.
So like, obviously, no. Like what happened with, so to back up, the trademark was filed at Tanacon the first time. I was in the room with Jordan and Tana, and I was like, if we're going to do the second one, which we had planned one, I don't know if people know or not, for like New York with Playlist. It was going to be like a collab. I'm really close with the owners of AKT, who owns Playlist, and he called me after everything too and gave me a lot of support. But like, the plan was to do a second one in New York. No one could have paid all of this, and I was like, Tana, we should trademark this. So I paid for it while we were there.
Okay.
But I don't know how, like, obviously LegalZoom has to like send it in. And then that takes forever for them to even process the application. It takes months. So like, it probably looked conspicuous, but I paid for it literally at Tanacon. It just took forever for it to go up. The intention behind the trademark was basically, in the beginning, I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do it, we can't have like competition. Obviously, VidCon's trademarked. If you're going to do this, and it's, given the creators on here, we don't want little pop-up ones to like affect the brand. So that was one part. After I contacted a trademark attorney just to see like what was going up and like what's going on. She's the one that's probably registered on like the actual thing, because then she went in and took it from LegalZoom and like did it whatever and filled out all the paperwork, because there was some thing LegalZoom had sent that was like, oh, you need to file this proof of specimen or something. I'm sure I have all of that. And long story short, I had to make a decision, because that was after Tanacon had like happened. Obviously, it passed 3 days. I was like, okay, do I just continue? What do I do with it? I said that I want to continue with it, not only for my mental health, but because, I had already paid for it. Yeah. And like, it made sense. My concern was if someone else did Tanacon and wanted to do a Tanacon event, whether it was Tana or not, I don't know how my mental health would have reacted? I still don't know necessarily, but like in that time, I don't know how I could have handled that, or like all the press that would have come out that's like Tanacon. Like, I don't know that I was even remotely in a position to even hardly hear the word, much less like another one happen.
Yeah.
And then the first one being compared to everything else, it would have probably made things way worse. So I was like, I'm going to do this, just go forward with it to make sure I have my mental health protected, if nothing else.
Okay.
Then I know that like that website, so Phil Shaw, who was on Dr. Phil, literally told me to set that up. He was like, oh, I talked to Tana. She like wants to do it. And I was like, I don't think that's true. It was like, okay, put it behind a paywall, whatever. And that happened. I don't think there was anything on there other than like speculation around it. There was also conversation within the company, because Phil still worked for me at that time, and we were just like,
what's the timeline at this point? Because that was around, I want to say, April of 2020. Is that around when you're thinking, or that's when the Instagram account became, at least in the public eye at that point, when people figured it out that it was a Tanacon account?
To give you more backstory, we went, Juice Crate, my new company, did a tour, I think January-ish of 2020.
Yes.
On that tour, we were all talking about it, and everyone was like, you should do it, you should do this. Phil's like, okay, I'll set up the website, here's new logos. Phil literally made the logos for Tanacon too. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm not making any decision. I want to talk to Jordan and maybe Tana. I want to talk to Shane. Like, I'm not going to do this unless they're involved and want to do it. And there was like a lot of emotional decisions going through that. One of which was like, I still wanted to make it up to the fans from the first time. Would I have considered doing a second one? Yes. Did I in no way, like, it wasn't a thing. There was never a venue book. There was nothing. It was just a matter of like the team saying, if you want to do this, here you go. I did verify the Instagram accounts because I was like, okay, well, we have the Amazon doc. We can just use that to push the documentary. And then if we decide to do something later, we will. And my logic behind, I guess, a bigger conversation around it is like, I lost so much money from Tanacon, and anything that I could do to make it back, I would consider, just from like an asset business standpoint. But to clarify, in no way, shape, form, or fashion was there like a Tanacon 2 location, city, line, like absolutely.
Oh yeah, no. I'm not saying that there was like a set plan in place. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. My other point for at least the account, the links on the account definitely switched around a little bit. There was one point in time where it was like a blank Eventbrite link where there was no Tanacon listing. It was just like brought you to Eventbrite or something.
Oh, I know what that was.
Yeah.
That's because that was, Eventbrite used to have an integration with Instagram where there would be a button that said get tickets. And if you took the Eventbrite link out, that would not be there anymore. And that account had been from previous Tanacon, I think. So there was like, we didn't want to lose that feature. Okay. So I think that's why that was there, but it didn't take you to a link or like any ticket page.
Yeah. The other thing was there was a Fanjoy account that sold Tanacon merch, and it was
Fanjoy.
Yes, and I have the receipt from my purchase of my sweatshirt that says Fanjoy, JuiceCon on it, or Juice Crate, Juice Crate LLC.
I'm curious to see that because so Fanjoy sponsored, as I'm sure you know, Tanacon. They have an exclusive contract with Tana for merch. Okay. I don't have a relationship with Fanjoy. I own a company called The Merch Crate that Juice Crate owns. So it's interesting to see that like Fanjoy, I know Tana was selling Tanacon merch for a while. I don't know if she still is.
No, so what she does, because, so, Tana, I know, saw the Dr. Phil episode. I have not reached out to her. She has not reached out to me or anything, but if she, sees this after the fact and is like, okay, I want to clear myself too, I will extend the same offer to her as I am to you. Both sides of the story offered. But after when everything fell apart at Tanacon, she kept saying like, here's what I'm going to do for X, Y, and Z. And one of the things she said was she was going to give everyone the free merch that they couldn't buy.
Saw that.
And then I think a couple of months later, there was a couple of different Tanacon attendee group chats, like just kind of seeing if there was any lawsuits or anything coming out. And someone was like, oh, cool, she's bulk selling all of the Tanacon merch for like 8 cents a piece. Like she was basically clearing it all out. So it's like, okay, there goes our merch. But yeah, no, this merch is very different from the merch that was originally sold on the website.
I'm surprised she was still selling merch because, in my opinion, when everything went down, it should have been like me and Tana and Shane, who had reached out the last day, like working on a solution, and Bella. And like instead, it very quickly became, let's throw Michael under the bus and pull ourselves as far away from it as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I like wanted to work on a solution. I still have texts where I'm like, what do we want to do? Like, should we do Tanacon 2? Just give everyone free tickets? What do we want to do? Which is ultimately like, I decided to refund everyone. And to my knowledge, every single ticket has been refunded at great expense to myself, ultimately ending in bankruptcy.
So I do know, because like I mentioned, I have spoken with a variety of attendees, some of whom were in the audience at the time of the Dr. Phil episode. There is at least a swath that have not been refunded, and or they had to specifically go to their banks because Veep was giving them so many issues. I was going to say,
so Veeps obviously is who like did refunds. I don't know if you know anything about Veeps, but this was the first event that they ever did tickets for. Veeps is owned by Benji and Joel Madden, MDDN, which is Good Charlotte, the band Good Charlotte.
Yes.
They're the founding members of that, and they own a company called MDDN. Alex Reese, which I'm kind of name dropping, and I probably shouldn't, but like Alex Reese was the CEO at the time. He now works for Universal Music Group and has left MDDN. But like it was started by this girl Sherry, who was in the Amazon doc in the room with us, because a lot of things happened, in my opinion. Like tickets were still being sold the day of the event. I like that should not have been a thing.
Yes.
I don't know if that was a miscommunication. I don't know if Jordan or obviously Tana had said don't stop selling tickets. That part's in my Amazon doc too, and she told Sherry keep tickets up. Whatever, Veeps there was a lot of problems there. So after everything kind of went down and I got back to Nashville, I called Benji and Joel and was like, hey guys, this is really unfortunate. I had worked with MDDN aside from this. Actually, Janie, who I think she's in the Amazon doc, but she didn't go on Dr. Phil, an employee of mine at the time, she was an intern for them because I had gotten her that internship. And then she's gone to work on for music, or Venture Music Group here in Nashville. But long story short, I had done record deals with them where I was like promoting their artist music. So I was kind of doing this as a favor for Veeps. I would have never done that. And hindsight's 2020. I think Veeps has gotten a lot better now. We were their first one, and I don't know. There's nothing to say besides like, if you haven't got a fucking refund, one, I'm sorry. Two, call Veeps, because that's who has the money. Like that's who kept it. So they should. And then if you haven't, do what those friends of yours have done and like file a claim with your bank. Veep said they were going to refund everyone, and to my knowledge, they should have.
Yeah. So. What they did is, and this was heavily criticized at the time, is they said, send us an email with your ticket email. Like we basically had to apply for a refund. There was no automatic type of thing, which is how I did get my refund. I went through Veeps, but I did have to full on apply for it, basically.
And Veeps, I'm assuming, like sent out an email to ticket holders and was like, apply for a refund?
Oh gosh, now off the top of my head, let me check, because I want to say no.
That's weird.
Also, if you go to the drive right now, there is the link. What they ended up doing, I don't think, the only thing I have from Veeps, or at least from support, was I had reached out to them, I think the day after the event, or what would have been day 2, and they replied the following day, thank you for contacting Veeps. For all concerns, comments, and refund requests, please contact or email the artist or influencer in question.
We had no control over ticketing, and that's the first time I ever did that. Normally, like, we would have used Eventbrite or like our own, but frankly, I should have used a different ticketing software. I wanted to like build that bridge and help out Benji and Joel and build a relationship that we had already had, and just, help them kind of get on the face, because I know there's a lot of art attached, and they were excited about it. We were too. But like they didn't have ticketing infrastructure that we would have liked, which was like the ability to do like meet and greet, what I call like lobbies and lotteries, where you could select an influencer and like fill up that meet and greet list. So we had to like work around a lot of their emerging platform text. They should have sent out a refund to everyone automatically. What's the point of this little apply to be refunded thing? That's weird. And it sucks to hear that not everyone has gotten them back.
The drive, I don't know if you can see it. I did leave my receipt for my purchase of Tanacon blocked out as my personal information. But other than that, that's everything.
So that doesn't look like FanJoy. That looks like you purchased it from Juice Crate, which is possible. We, for a limited time, ran some like novelty Tanacon merch in an effort to just kind of like, frankly, make anything back from it that we could. And then I decided, and I was like, you know what, guys, I don't like the optics of this. I also take it down, basically. And so, like, if you look, it's not there. Yeah. But I think at some point there was like this discussion that happened internally that was like, okay, how do we recoup anything that we lost on that? And someone said, let's just throw up some merch, some novelty merch. So that's probably what that was. And you were probably one of the very few people that got it, because I think I made a decision within like 2 or 3 days of being up to have that removed, which is
I will now be reselling it for $4,000 now.
You know, it's crazy to me. Like, I never expected all of this to happen the way that it did. And like, I'm sure you have other Tanacon questions, and I'm sure it will come up. But like, I still have all of the original lanyards and passes. Like, there was nothing. There's this conspiracy theory that I was like scamming people, which like to me makes at the beginning I was very upset about it. Now it makes me laugh, because it's like, how in the world could anyone think that that's even possible when like I literally had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, lost $750,000, like spent all of this on planning. There was no part of it that like was driven by ulterior motive except just wanting to do this with Tana. I also know that like young and naive Michael, who was very excited, should have said no to a lot of things. That like when someone like Tana and Bella Thorne are in front of you telling you to do something, it's not that easy to say no. But people probably like, oh, you can say no. No, not as easy as you think. And like, I should have, you know, she was like, it needs to be right next to VidCon during these dates. Well, I'm sure, you know, we like at the time, Good Times had done an annual convention every year in January. And like Tana had been there before, which is one of the reasons she decided to do this, because it went so well. And we had that hotel on retainer for the next year. I was like, why don't we just do it in January at the same hotel?
So you were familiar with the size of the hotel. You were familiar with this hotel and working with them.
I'm familiar with that hotel. And that was like the only hotel. I'm assuming you're talking to the Anaheim one, yeah?
Yeah, the Marriott. Yes.
Yeah. And that was the only hotel in the space or in the area that like Tana said it needed to be, that had those dates. We paid a fortune for it, which I like have. I was concerned, looking back at it, like I wanted to do it in January, and then she like did it. She's like, it needs to be the same time as VidCon. She was vindictive, obviously, and then like me being like, I need to prove I can do this to Tana. So like, I didn't say no when I should have said no to certain things. And that's my fault. But I also was just excited for the opportunity. And I think like we were all friends, and it was just felt very like, let's do it. I did not expect what happened to happen. Tana didn't expect what happened to happen. And then like, there are things obviously that could have been done different, but frankly, I didn't think I could say no and not burn the bridge type thing. You know, she was also young in her career. So it is what it is, but like, yeah. Yeah.
So let's move on to Tanacon logistics and all of that, because I think when you responded to my video, you said that you sent me a screenshot of a text message between you and Tana, and to show that you guys had actually been planning this in April, whereas previously it was believed this had all been planned in a month, the April of the month before, when did you guys actually say, hey, Tanacon, we're doing this?
So it's an interesting story. I remember watching Tana's video because someone had sent it to me. I think, do you know Larry Merritt? He is a former client of mine. We used to live together. At the time we lived together. We even lived together after Tanacon for quite a while. He actually brought it to my attention and was like, you should do this with her. And I was like, oh, maybe that's a good idea. So then I was just like, okay, I'll text her. We started talking about it. We obviously announced it far later than when we like planned it. I still have X.
Yeah, no, I'm just pulling up. No, you're good. I'm just pulling up her video because I'm assuming you're talking about the F VidCon video, basically, when she was finally
like that
booted.
one.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to make sure we got the timeline.
Holy fuck! I have not went through these texts since. I still have all her voice memos.
Mm-hmm. So people doing that about meetup registrations being in person. You know, Jackson and Aaron apparently. So the stage looks awesome.
So her video was April 2nd, 2018, which would have been 2 months before Tanacon. So
right. Let me see. I'm gonna try to find the text. I know I sent you a screenshot. Obviously, like people think it happened in a month. So we actually started like when I was filming Jawline at the end of Jawline, the scene where I'm like in the house with like Nick and Pierre. That I was literally planning Tanacon during that time. Okay. I remember like talking to the I got cut from Jawline because it was not relative and it would have distracted from like the whole story. But ultimately, like that is when we were making the decision to like do it and started from there. And then I like flew to her house.
Yeah, that was like, May. Let's see. I have the screenshot from your documentary. May 28th, 2018 was, it says first Tanacon meeting with Tana. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about.
Probably.
So that was the first in-person meeting or was that the first meeting? Because that would be a month before the event.
May 31st, I was with Bella Thorne's manager, Jen. Let's see. May 30th, she said, "What are you doing? I can't breathe." Let's see. I'm still going up. I flew to her house. I was planning stuff like, this is May 28th. There is like a layout. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's like hotel layout options where we were drawing out the floors. Let's see.
What the hell? I literally have no idea. That's unreal. That's unreal.
May 26th, I was sending her creator graphics. May 26th, I had sent her like drafts of like Bella Thorne's graphics and stuff. So like, I know it was what felt like months. It felt very fast, but it was like every single day. Even before we worked together, I was getting stuff ready to show her at like our office. Which is all evidenced, you know, here in these texts. I'm like sending her, here's the ticket site with Veep's logo, like all kinds of stuff, which that was May 25th. So like we were in communication for a large period of time. But pretty much the day she put that video up, she had sent me a voice, "Oh, let's fucking do it, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, okay, I'll start working on some ideas and some drafts. And then I eventually, she went to EDC, which I don't remember when it was. And then I like stayed to work on Tanacon, even though like I got them their EDC passes. May 18th, I had sent her the guest check-in list for EDC. So like prior to all of that, feature creator registration, I had sent May 16th. We were planning it at Playlist, like a lot of things kind of leading up. But I think once we kind of announced it, everyone's like, oh, they planned it in a month. But we had already like, she'd approved hotel at that point. Everything was like, in motion. I think
I'm not, it's still like, even based on the timeline you're giving me, and I'm not doubting your timeline, it is still about 2 months before 2 months and a half before the event, essentially.
Yeah. I think I always said like 3 months because I think it's like 2.5. That's probably right. Which is fast.
Yeah.
But I was confident. I was beyond confident if we did it in January at our hotel that we'd already paid for, had on contract, that like, we were golden.
Was that hotel different than the Marriott you ended up being at?
Yeah, it was in Chicago. At the Palomar, which we had done every single year for as long as Good Times existed. That's where Tana was at for our convention prior, where we had a lot of like promotional footage shot. We knew how we laid it out. We knew how to set up. The hotel knew what was going on. We had security there. But like, because she wanted it to be so close to VidCon and so same time, same city, we were very limited. There's like X amount of hotels in Anaheim that are frankly not Disney. And then like with VidCon there, everything was fully booked. So we had like 2 or 3 options. And
even then with conventions, especially with one as big as VidCon, like they sign contracts with surrounding hotels that they won't hold conflicting events.
Yes. And we had to get like, that was actually a very big problem because we tried to get one that was like right there. You know, those 2 hotels right across from the Anaheim Convention Center?
Yes.
We tried to get one of those. I like called in favors for mine at Insomniac. Like I called people very high up and was like, you know, what can we do? We came up with the idea of like more of a festival stuff. Obviously Insomniac is like festivals. And so like Insomniac was not involved, and I don't want to use their name at all, but like I called and asked for advice, and I was like, what should I do? And he's like, maybe you should get like a field and build a stage out there, all of which I was down for because there's way less, I don't know, constraints. But then we had like ultimately one choice, and that was the hotel that we were at, which had a limited capacity. In the Amazon doc, I literally say, capacity is this. What do you want to do? And she's like, oh, we love an existential crisis for you, but are we going to stop selling them? And I'm like, are we? No. So,
yeah.
You know,
so, I mean, so, you know, I have watched the Amazon doc, and I've probably watched it more than a lot of people have. I've had to watch it multiple times for stuff. So there is a point where, and I do have the screenshot, I can add that in there, of where you show Tana the ticket portal on Veeps from your end. And I mentioned this there. It's total sales at the time. And I think this is the same night as the first meeting. It says 42,000 total sales. Featured creator 200 out of 200. Featured fucking creator 652 out of 5,000. And that was just at the start. So, I mean, already then 5,000, you know, isn't going to fit, at least in the ballroom of that hotel.
And that's what I had like kind of told her. I was like, this is not going to fit. I had sent to Veeps and like, listen, we have to cap this at something. We can't just put like 100,000 tickets out because what if they sell? I was like, at the very max, let's anticipate 5,000. And we planned for 5,000. And then like a portion of those were free tickets that she had, you know, said we're going to give away free tickets. Those were first come, first serve. We added a couple later at some point. When Shane announced, that's when tickets skyrocketed. As I didn't even know, frankly, I did not know who Shane Dawson was at that point. I worked with a lot of like Musical.ly and YouNow and TikTok. Well, it wasn't TikTok, Musical.ly and like Viners and some YouTubers, but like I didn't. Tana and I met through mutual friends and her coming to my convention, and so I didn't know who Shane was. Did not know what to expect. Jordan Morona's freaking out and like, oh, that's cool. Like, I love that Shane posted that. Cool. I quickly got to learn who Shane was. And, you know, I think at some point I was probably like, okay, so we're not going to sell more than 5,000 tickets. Here's our plan. And I'll put in the drive, which I think they like showed on Dr. Phil, like security briefs. I hired a director of events. Nobody knows that. Like, I didn't run the event. I hired a director of events. Obviously I did. I sat in the room and like signed off on things, but like no one knows that there was people, you know, hired to do that. That's why like the day started late, but like we had planned for 5,000 people. I was confident in 5,000. Might not have fit in a ballroom at one time, but that was never like the intention. There was multiple meetups having at the same time, which would draw people out. Jen, who was like Bella Thorne's manager, was handling food trucks and everything outside. So I was like, okay, cool. We're going to have things outside. I had told them I wanted a stage outside to have like entertainment for those in line. And just in case people wanted to go out. So a lot of things that like.
So there was preparation or at least a plan in place for people who would be waiting outside. There was an expectation.
100%.
Okay.
And for the record, like, okay, there's two things I want to say about the line.
Okay.
Number one, we should have had a better registration process. Like we should have had a check-in for free tickets versus not. Because when Tana tweeted that we're going to cut your passes off, come over, everyone mixed in the same line. And then we were like, okay, you have a free ticket. Please wait to the side until you can. That was a fuck up and an oversight by probably multiple staff members, but ultimately myself. Should have changed that. One of the girls who was working check-in has literally made herself an influencer from saying that all of that. But like, they had a full team of meetings. Our director of operations, who handles operations, was like in charge of making sure check-in process went beautifully. Obviously, with an event this size, I can't be everywhere at once as much as I should have been.
But I just want to real quick because I fully understand that you cannot be everywhere at once in an event like this. But at the end of the day, you were Michael Weist of Good Times Live. You know, like you were one of the players. It's my fault.
100%. And like, for the record, my last name is Weist. Everyone always pronounces it wrong.
I'm sorry. Oh gosh.
It's okay. No, it is my fault. And like, I should have pressed that there should have been a separate line. I didn't even think about it because like we've done check-in 1,000 times. Never had an issue like that. I'm just like, if they have a ticket, they're going to come to this check-in. Boom. I did not anticipate like an influx of people. My fault, complete oversight. that is a fuck up of many that happened, and that was a problem. But I never anticipated the line for anyone to have to like wait that long. The check-in was supposed to start quite early. When I woke up the day of the event, I was like, why is the line not already moving? Why are people not inside already? Like, you know, Nick Swenson, the director of events, whom I think I told you via DM. If you don't know Nick has been in this industry as long as I have. He used to run MagCon with like Cameron Dallas and Taylor. Nick knows what he's doing. I was suspicious when he asked to be my director of events for like, I didn't know if he was doing this to sabotage me or if he was, because we were always competitors. And like, I woke up, I said, yeah, you can do it. I could use the help. I trust you. You know what you're doing. You've been in this industry a long time. And he was doing a damn good job, like showing me everything I needed and really executing well until that point when I woke up and I was like, why is registration not going already? And he was like, oh, we're just waiting. I'm like, on what? And then like, that's when I was like, let them in, start the process.
What time was that? Because I got in line, let's see, about 7. I was in line pretty early. And it was already wrapped around the parking lot at that point.
It was supposed to be early because I think we had sent out an email or like a notification or something, maybe through Veeps. The day before. Yeah,
there was one that said originally registration was going to start at, I think, 8 or 10. It was like a later registration time. It got changed to 6 a.m. and then the doors still would not open till 10, I think is what it said. And then at the very bottom, and I remember this so well, there was a little thread that said, and remember, no refunds, smiley face. And that was like a running joke. And I hope I can find this email. It says, reminder, all sales are final. And then it's not a winky face. It is a little O face.
Oh, yeah, I did not write that. I would never type something like that. I've never write that. Not professional. I probably didn't even see that message.
This is from Veeps, by the way. It was sent out by Veeps. But Good Times Live is the, it's like, let's see. No reply Veeps, but yeah, Good Times Live, but it's through the Veeps portal, I'm assuming. Yeah, because it says new message from Good Times Live.
Interesting. But I think we had done that so that we could like register meet and greet groups between that because Veeps didn't have a way to like do a lottery like I wanted. Hindsight, I should have said no to Veeps and done a lottery through like Eventbrite or a software that had that built in. However, I didn't because I wanted to do whatever. But when I woke up, that line should have already been moving. People should have already checked in between 6 and 10 during that buffer time and like had wristbands and know what groups they're in and be hanging out, I think. I don't think there was any point in like waiting, which really shocked me. And if you look at my face, I think there's like scenes in the Amazon doc. I don't know if Phil was filming that or not, but I like literally run out of the hotel so fast and I'm like, why the fuck is this line not moving? Really took me by surprise because I had far expected that to be happening. So that was like number one. Number two was I didn't expect like Tana to tweet, leave VidCon and come over. We expected 5,000 in line. And I was like, okay, that'll take, X amount of time to move through. So that's what we had that buffer for. And that's why I was so surprised. Number two, and I like have never said this, but it kind of goes without saying, like no one was forced to be in line at any point. I don't want people to think that like I held them hostage there. Obviously, like if you're in line to get into something,
you're going to stay in line when you've paid money for an event. And I think something that a lot of people seem to forget, because even VIP, which is what I got because free tickets were gone at the point. Yeah, in total, it came to about $79 after taxes and all that. But there were so many people who paid and traveled to come to this event because it was so 100%. Cheap. And
we should have done like hotel packages. Looking back on it, I would do a lot of things differently. I don't blame anyone for like not getting out. I would just like to say on the record, like I did not. If you get out of this line, no, I didn't. I also like people wait in line at Disney World. You're out. I'm so sorry. And like, I cannot apologize enough that it did not go the way I want to outside. However, I did not anticipate for anyone to get sunburned. I never anticipate anyone to be in that line that long. 5,000 people should not take that long to move through a line. That was a failure of like multiple staffs and ultimately my fault. But like, yeah, I don't know. I just like, also the whole food truck, like Jen, who is Bella Thorne's manager, they had said they were getting all these food trucks there. To my knowledge, food trucks were there. I was told Jen.
They were. So where the food trucks were actually there. So where the parking lot ended for the hotel, there was a street, and then across the street in a lot was where the food trucks were. So
not like visibly there, right there.
Not right there. Yeah, no.
They should have been. I told Jen exactly where I wanted them. I did not set them up and go out there because I was doing 1,000 other things. But like, Jen should have made sure. I don't know. A lot of things kind of slipped through the cracks that day of, I think, because those trucks should have been there. And like, there should have been that 4-hour process. People should have been able to go to food trucks and come back. And like, it was supposed to flow a lot better. But by the point in which like people had already been there early and the line didn't move by the time that I had gotten out there to see, people were already pissed, I'm sure. I mean, I would be. Hell, I'm upset if I'm waiting 2 hours in a Disney line. And like, excitement, everything built up. So like, once it kind of got moving and like, ultimately moving forward, everyone started checking in. I think like I took a breath and was like, okay, it's moving. But the intention for all of these 5,000 people were not to be in the ballroom at once. It was supposed to be like, the hotel had said, let's do waves. We're going to band them with wristbands and have groups this time to this time, which I wasn't crazy about because I like the convention feel. I fucking love conventions. Like I've been, since the very first playlist, I've been at every playlist, got to know owners, built my own convention, love it. Like I wanted people to be able to come in and out and hang out and like go to this room and then go to this lounge and have an exciting experience. So I didn't love the idea of like doing waves, but Tana was insistent and the hotel was insistent that people would go back and forth between VidCon and there. So I was like, okay, we'll see. How are you going to force people out after their wave? Blah, blah, blah. We told security, and then the hotel was like, yeah, we briefed security on it too, which I wonder, I think I've got it actually. Okay. And I'll add it to this.
Yeah, the thing about, and I mentioned this because what ended up happening at VidCon, not VidCon, Tanacon, from my experience, is they did I call it the first round of shutdown, where they just kind of cleared everyone out, told everyone they were shutting down the event. And then I was one of the people who hid and was able to stay inside. And then while they were still trying to force us out into the front through the lobby, they started letting more people in. And so that caused even more of a frenzy because people were pissed.
I was so livid at the hotel, which was like, Jordan Verona didn't get involved until like the day they got to the hotel prior to the convention was like, I think 1 or 2 days before it started. And that's when he was like, okay, I want to be really involved. And he was handling like wristbands and meetup groups and such like that. And some of the programming. Well, like the hotel started freaking out when all these extra people started showing up because we had anticipated 5,000 to the best of our knowledge. And it clearly became more than that. And then that they like freaked out and like shut the door. And I was like,
how many do you think were there? Because I believe it was the following day or a day after, the city of Garden Grove did make a statement that they had escorted off about 4,000 to 5,000 people off the parking lot, and then 1,000 people that were inside, which would max 7,000 were actually trackable there.
I saw that, but like, I'm getting information from multiple sources. Okay. If you see in like the Amazon doc, like the security literally tells the camera there's 15,000 people outside. So imagine me sitting in a boardroom and here comes my head of security. There's 15,000 people outside and the hotel's sitting right there. And they then freak the fuck out. So like we're operating on the thought that there's 10,000 extra people approximately outside. Instantly raises like adrenaline levels and everything goes.
Yeah, no, I'm not doubting that like in the moment, the frenzy of just like, oh my God, this is so many people and then making a guesstimate and all of that. But I just want to make sure that do you truly believe that there was 15,000 people there?
I think I believe that there was somewhere between 5 and like 13.
Okay.
Outside, at which point, I don't know, like what max point. I just know that like there was a lot of things happening outside of my control. Like when the hotel stepped in, I wish that was in the Amazon doc. I like pleaded with the hotel and was like, do not stop. They're like, we're canceling your event. I was like, that is going to make everything worse. Open the door. Like usually you have the lower level staff and everyone says, I said I have a staff of like 100 people. Well, there's like the executive staff, which I talk about on like Dr. Phil. But then there is a staff of 100 people that are all below all of us.
At least people that are contracted to work on the event, essentially.
Right. And so like I'm sitting in an office with the vice president of the region for Marriott and the general manager of the hotel, myself, the head of security, and then everyone else is still elsewhere dealing with everything. And so by the time I'm out of that meeting, things are escalating. So then it's just like, we're operating off of information that we get in like a moment. And they're saying there's 15,000 people. So we all run into the office and have this discussion. We bring in fire marshal and he's like, this is not safe. And I'm like, I fucking know it's not safe. You know,
I don't mean to laugh. Sorry. That's
no.
sorry.
I mean, it's like funny looking back on it in certain situations. I was like, frankly, I told the lady at at like the GM, I was like, if you stop this, you're going to find me dead because they're going to riot and someone's going to fucking murder me. Do you want my blood? Like, it was comical to a certain extent, but like, not in that moment. It was very intense.
No, I don't doubt that whether it was 5,000 or 13,000, there was a horde of people who were, a majority of whom were young teenagers. I think we can accept that. And they had already, at that point, a lot of them had already been standing outside for several hours and were pissed off, you know? So I think
and I get that. My goal was like, from an executive level, I want them to have one of the reasons I like built that was for everyone to have the most amazing experience. That's why Good Times was called Good Times. Like, it was not anything else other than people having the like most amazing experience of their life. And instantly I'm like, okay, we need to fix that. Here we go. Like, you know, so I wasn't happy. And then I get into this room and they're like, there is no option for us to continue this at this hotel. And I'm like, yeah, clearly. What if we split it? I'm like, clearly there's more people. This is after I had like, everything's happening. While it's literally happening, I basically tell them, can we split it? They're like, yes, if you can find another venue to have it. I always have a venue on like back, whatever you want to call it, like backup venue. Yeah. Which you see me go to in the Amazon doc.
Yes.
They had told me prior that we had it for X dollars and we could do this, and this. And I was like, cool. So I'm going to go over there. We're just going to do it. Then I get there and he's like, I see what's happening, and ask for like $50,000 more. And I lose it. That's when I'm like, oh my God. When I walk back from there is when you see me break down in the middle of the street. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. Because now they won't let me buy the venue that like, I literally can't. Marriott won't let me put a stage outside. They won't let me do anything else. And that's kind of that realization.
Was there a contract in place with the other hotel at least? Or was it just a verbal, like, you're our backup plan type of thing?
It was a backup plan because they wanted a full payment up front. And I was like, okay, well, I can't sign that contract. But if we need it, I'll come back over here. We'll get it. And the girl, whom I still talk to,
is she the one holding someone was holding a little dog at one point? Or was I?
Yes,
okay.
She's sweet as can be. And she was like the booker or whatever. The guy at the desk is like the boss, the owner. And then, you know, she's trying to like help us because she wants the commission, I'm sure. And like, ultimately, we don't make it work. That's when I start walking back and I'm just like, oh, we're fucked. What? I don't know what other options we are. We go in that room. I'm like, at this point in full, what are we going to do mode? That's when we make the decision to like, you know, cancel the rest of the day or something like that. Somewhere in that time, I had made that decision that we have no choice. I don't want people getting trampled. People can't stand outside, you know, all of which like during all of these conversations, the whole staff is like operating, you know, independently with their like Taylor, the director of operations, is supposed to be running operations, and Nick, the director of events, is supposed to run the entire event. And then it all filters back to me for those decisions. So like, I'm assuming everything's still operational and still happening. I'm trying to find a backup plan so that we can continue for the next day without any hiccups. That falls through. So that's when I'm like, all right, I don't know what we're going to do. We get back to the hotel and I'm like, where the fuck is Tana? Let me see what she wants to do.
This is still night one, correct? The end of end of day at one point. Because I left after things were like shut down, get out. It was around, I'd say that was where I got upstairs and like hid upstairs for a little bit for like an hour or two. I'd say around 4 p.m. is when I finally was like, okay, I'm going to leave and go to my car. So I'd say it was around 4 p.m. when it was like, okay, the event's done for the day. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, that was the evening. And like, during that time, I think the fire marshal from the hotel had like started ushering people out. Sydney had made this statement. I'm just like, okay, let's figure out what our plan is. And then I get back to the hotel. Tana and Jordan are nowhere to be found because they're at Studio 71's VidCon party. And I'm like, what the fuck? This girl is at a party when we should literally be finding a solution. I was livid. Everyone is in the room. At that point, we're just like, what's the plan? What's the plan? And then ultimately, we don't get any sleep that night, still trying to find the plan. The next day, I go out, make the statement in front of the cameras and be like, we cannot continue this. But like, in a synopsis, I feel like that kind of covers a timeline. But I think we thought people were going to go in waves. And I just added to the drive, like, basically wristbands and coordination to show that we had like planned out by day, by room, so that we could break up capacity. Because I knew 5,000 was a lot. And, you know, we had brief security, 5,000 people are going to be there. And just kind of like, I wonder, during all of this too, like the back of house, which the fans obviously don't like see, run perfectly fine. Like we had a whole floor we bought out that is the creator talent floor. The lounge upstairs, which is sponsored by Fanjoy, is running. The creators are having a great time because they don't have any obligation to go on stage. They're just partying with each other. We end up having Tana's like birthday party, the creator party night one. You know, I come up to Tana like, don't worry, we're going to figure this out. I'm so sorry how this happened. She's just pissed at me, and which I get. I mean, I totally understand. But there was still no point of like, let's figure this out. It was just whatever. So we all have the creator party night one. And then day two starts, and you know, that's when we were just like, we don't have any other options. At that point, we'd already canceled it anyways. But that kind of like is a synopsis of what happened through there to give you some timeline.
Yeah. So, I mean, my next question is going to be, I think we should talk about security, because that's something that I think a lot of people ask about, and something that has been speculated upon a lot. So we should talk about that. And Dr. Phil talked about this as well. They shared the, allegedly when the contract was signed, which they say was the day of the event, or the day before, I believe, June 22nd. Is that incorrect or anything like that? Or
I'm looking to see what I can find. I've got to find like that archive folder. So security changed a ton because like the hotel kept changing things. I wanted to make sure that everything was like up to the most moment. So like I signed several copies of it. But we had walked through security before there was even, like I was on site at the hotel at least a week prior to the event. I'm sure if I could find my flight somewhere. Like my whole staff was in the room. We had built out the office like a week prior. So I had walked through with fire marshal.
So you had gone through the hotel. That was one of the questions one of the attendees asked me to ask you about, was if you had actually been to the venue before the event.
I did. And Tana had saw it before too, because she had came in 2 or 3 days prior. Obviously at that point we were kind of like, you know, stuck in whatever decision that we made there. But like we all saw it before, and I actually toured it a couple weeks prior to that. When I was like at Tana's house in part of the Amazon doc, I went to Anaheim, walked through it with the hotel, you know, several times to say the least. I'd seen the hotel. And then ultimately we walked through security several different times. I will say when it comes to security, there was one company in all of Anaheim that had any security guards. And that's because VidCon obviously had everyone. And like, they called in extra people. They called in staff. I had like David Dobrik getting into a fight with a security guard that I got called out to go resolve because the security guard didn't even let him go in. And I'm like, bro, what you doing? This man's trying to go to check in. Let him in. Like that security company, I have nothing nice to say about because I think they just hired anyone who wanted a paycheck and did not run them through, which I'll add to the drive in a second, our like security briefing.
Yeah, of course. The other statement was actually one made by, I want to say Tana. She claimed that she had found out that the night before the event, you had ordered t-shirts from an Instagram account that said security on them. And you were like having security wear these shirts or something that you had gotten.
Hell no.
Okay.
I made sure that we had uniformed guards. And like, I'm going to, actually I found it. Let's see.
Okay.
So here is, and some of this information, there's like multiples. So if you want to see something more, like more creator stuff, let me know.
Okay.
This security brief is like how in depth that we brief security on protocols. Every single guard has a copy of the document that I just uploaded.
Okay.
Where they can meet up, where the back entrances are, everything. I sat down with everyone on their team. And you look at the bottom of that, this says Nick Swinson, Director of Events. So like, at some point, somebody else had to take some accountability too. But I personally sat down with the head of security, the fire marshal, Nick, and my staff, and walked through every hotel and was like, this is back of house. Fans do not enter here. This is where creators check in. Like, walked them through everything. And then I think that security company was like, oh, we've probably never done something this big. We need to call in more guards, which is probably at what point I signed a revised security protocol or whatever, like a revised contract. so that we had more guards. And I was like, I want uniformed guards. Everyone needs to be in the same thing. Otherwise, fans are not going to know who's security. Creators are not going to know who's security. But no, I would never order. It would cost more money to order them through Instagram or some shop than to like make sure the security company brought them. It probably says it in the contract.
Okay.
Which I wonder if I can find.
Okay. The security was something that was definitely stipulated a lot. Even at the day of the event, allegedly there was someone who, there was allegedly a group of girls who was able to coerce their way in through a security guard or two. That was one of the claims made.
I was pissed. And anytime I found out shit like that, obviously I go and handle it myself because it's like not okay. And like one of my things, even during all of this, the back of the house, I want creators to have a good time because that's my business. That's like the core of my business. I want creators to have a great experience so that one, we continue to work together. Two, you know, we know exactly where everyone is supposed to be. So like, if I find out some shit like that, I instantly get involved.
Can we ask, or can we talk about the young, how old was he at that time? 15? The 15-year-old who managed to get backstage and up with creators during the shutdown events?
I would like to know whom. So the person running back of house is Janie. She did creator check-in. Obviously, I'm off-site. So, like, I don't know if he knew someone or if the security guard.
He was a youth. So I actually interviewed him. He was 15. He did a lot of he later made a video about like how safe really are we, where he showed how easy it was to get into a variety of events, including Tanacon. And he literally just walked out with the camera, had no badge, had nothing, and was just let in and passed multiple security guards, was let through multiple doors. And he ended up being right next to Tana and Bella at one point and had them both on camera. And
that is crazy. And I would have flipped my shit if I was in the room and have known that. I will say this, at any event, there is a certain level of like, and I'm sure you know this, if you look like you're supposed to be there, a lot of times security will be like, you're probably supposed to be there, I don't want to bother them. That goes to anything. I like have been at the biggest music festivals in the world backstage and seen a fan who just like brought in some camera gear and come backstage and they're interviewing Billie Eilish. And I'm like, how did you do that? At which point I will go to the security guard and be like, literally this happened a week ago. And I was like, check their credentials. They're clearly not supposed to be back there. And they're like, oh my God, thank you. You just saved my job. But like, I hate when that shit happens. There was also an understanding at like Tanacon that anyone's a featured creator. So like, I don't know if maybe they got escorted by someone, but at the end of the day, it probably was a matter of like, someone thought they're supposed to be there, didn't check. It was literally meant out of the best of intentions between everyone. It wasn't like Tana wanted this shit to happen either, you know?
Yeah, we can argue that, you know, Firefest had the best of intentions as well and wanted to give people a fun week in the Bahamas, you know? But I mean, I don't want to say that like anything criminal happened or anything like that, but I mean, there is a difference between like wanting to scam someone or not wanting to scam someone, and then, you know, people's needs aren't met, you know, safety requirements aren't met.
And I don't deny that. I know I fucked up. I apologize. I have spent a large part of my career trying to like rectify that. But outside of like mistakes that were made and a failure on my side and my team, like there was no, everyone calls me like scammer and criminal. Like I literally wanted nothing more than for it to go perfectly. Hell, I would have been ecstatic. It didn't. And that's because of the things you're talking about. Like we failed in certain areas, and I recognize that. But I just like, I can't fathom how anyone would think this was intentional. And I know a lot of people like painted it out to be that way as like some mysterious, but it's impossible. Like no one would want bankruptcy to happen. No one would want these things to happen. Like nothing. Also, as a side note, I just found the LegalZoom invoice that has the date of 2018 when I paid for the trademark. So I added that. But point being, like, I literally wanted nothing more than for everyone to have the most amazing experience. It would have catapulted everything we were doing to, you know, Tanacon, New York. Like it would have been a much bigger process. I do think a lot of it happened for a reason, not only reasons of like failure and oversight and staff and my faults, but like also, I think there had to be some cosmic play because I'm grateful to have learned the things I did learn. I also am grateful that like, had it have went well, I try to think what that future would look like. And it's not a future that I would be happy in. I know that now. Ambition at the time blinded me for sure. And I should have said no to a lot of things. I was young. Tana was young. We were all young. And like, social media is growing up on camera. I have been a part of that as well. I started this business when I was 17, a junior in high school, selling my first car to like finance it. It was learning from experience, and this is a hell of an experience to learn from. I can say that.
Yeah. So I know we briefly touched on, had you previously, because I think the conception that I had heard and I just accepted at that point was that Good Times Live had been at least involved in Tana's tour, and that's how this partnership came about. Had you guys actually worked together prior to the event, other than just her going to your conventions that you're saying?
So we went to like her tour stop when I was in Chicago for some other business thing. I like went as a friend, and we like shot some photos for a clothing line that I was doing some stuff with it. But no, outside of her coming to my event, like I was not involved with her tour, nothing. And when we did get involved and like decided to do this, I tried a lot of options because frankly, I knew that like I'm young. I have done some big conventions, but not what I expected this to be. Still kind of new to that. And I like called Full Screen Live, who did her tour, and was like, do you guys want to be involved? They said no. We had a meeting at Playlist about it. The gentleman who ran Full Screen Live was like, actually, we're going to shut down Full Screen Live's touring division, which they have still not brought back up. And we actually had a tour with them planned called Love is Love. That was like Jackson, Lorray, a bunch of other YouTubers. So that got canceled.
So sorry, I just want to make sure we're clarifying. But Full Screen didn't say that because they didn't want to do something with Tana. It was just, oh no, we're shutting down that category of our business, right?
To my knowledge. I mean,
okay.
He probably couldn't straight up be like, we're going to shut down touring forever, so we don't want to be a part of it. Because we had a discussion, like we sat down in person and met together. So there was at least interest, but ultimately they didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do January, which I was very confident that would have been the best bet because we had planned. We knew
following January, correct? So 2019,
right? It would have been that January coming up after all of that. And interestingly enough, like Ashley Swan, who was Tana's best friend, registered because we still had Good Time scheduled after Tanacon. That convention, that hotel was still paid for. Like Ashley registered to be a creator for that. So I think that was interesting how Tana's like actively going out on this campaign to tarnish my name, yet Ashley has registered to be a creator at our event in January within the following months of Tanacon. So I don't know. I mean, like, no. The simple answer is we did not work together prior to this event other than like her being a feature creator at my convention, us becoming good friends, and like me going on her tour stops and just kind of hanging out. And like, then we decided to do this together, and the rest is history.
Okay. Well, this kind of leads into one of the questions that, so you mentioned that you would be fine with me taking some questions from other attendees that I speak to, some of whom were in the Dr. Phil audience. But one of the questions they asked, did you have negative interactions before the event? And when I say that, I mean, were you aware of like her sleeping in is a notorious fact about her, and her being late to things is a notorious fact. And I'm just saying, like, this is something that has been, for anyone watching or listening, this is something that has been prevalent in throughout Tana's career, is her lack of promptness. Let's go with that.
The answer is like yes and no. As we started to go through this process, I very quickly recognized I didn't have the partner I expected to have. However, a lot of the talent that I was working with, like managing, was very much the opposite. They were driven. They wanted to work. They were excited to work. Tana was showing me she was excited, but like not giving me the time needed to do things. Cause like, obviously outside of an event, we have other aspects of business. So like, I'm trying to put the things in place that she needs to be successful for the event, hiring a director of events, it wasn't until Jordan got there that he ever started like helping with programming. Like, this is going to be this panel. I didn't know all her guests. Hell, they were still adding guests that day. And so like, I didn't know who should be on what panel with whom. I knew we would like create a panel and be like, this is an idea. Who do you want on it? And then like, Tana doesn't even remember this, but like her and her mother came to the hotel right after Tana had oral surgery, and like she doesn't remember any of that. She like denies it. It's like, no, I was never there. But like, yeah, you were. Literally met your mother. Like, there was a lot of things.
So she had seen. Are you saying she had seen the venue before the event, or like what's the significance?
Yeah, and like we were there asking for just like feedback. That was probably like a week prior, I think. Okay. And like,
were you aware that she was going on a Hawaii trip 2 weeks before the event, or?
Aware is a word you could use. She had asked me if I was to go. I was like, girl, no, I got to stay here and plan this event. Like,
oh, so she invited you with her.
Yes, and like the same thing with EDC. Like, I'm out here planning her event for her when like at the basis of it, I really should have just been funding and like setting up logistics for the most part. And then like, it was Tanacon. Like, her vision was what we needed to carry out it. You know, we would make a panel and be like, is this okay? And she's like, no, change these creators. And I'm like, if you would have just come to the meeting, you probably would have been able to like save us all of this work, which would have allowed me more time to focus on other things. She would tweet out or make videos and say, the goodie bag's gonna have this. And I'm like, is it? You just gonna let me know now? And it's
that was something I also was gonna ask was about the tweeting. Cause that
threw us off,
yeah,
to say the least. And like, I would text Jordan and be like, so Tana said we're gonna have this, and this. Do y'all have that? You didn't even approve that by me. We don't have the budget to get X amount of whatever. These goodie bags that she wanted, like, where is that money coming from, Tana? Like, we can't. And then like, we didn't even order those Tanacon condoms until I was on site in the hotel, because she would not give like approval on what the design was or anything. Like, everything we needed to make it Tanacon could not happen. Like, up until that point, we kind of did our part. We booked the hotel, we booked security, you know, we had everything in place. And then because she's busy living her life and doing whatever, not to blame her for any of this, but like, we didn't have the things we needed as well. So then it became like, which I very just kind of quickly learned that, okay, I don't know if we're ever going to get it. Then Jordan was like frantic because I guess he realized she had not given us that. And so he's sitting in the office with my team, who is literally sleepless nights planning this event. And I'm like, Jordan, who's on this panel? Like, can you confirm that they're going to be here by this time at this location? Go get them from the green room or bring them here. Like, the full rundown that we do. Because like in Chicago, we do our convention. We'll have whatever panel, right? Then a talent coordinator will go get that group for the panel, put them in the green room, get them ready, and then bring them to the panel. So like, I was like, Jordan, have you coordinated with your team who's handling talent to do that? That kind of gave him a wake up call a little bit and was like, oh, no. And I'm like, okay, well, Shane has requested this. Where are we at? Like, you're supposed to be the one coordinating all of Tana's talent. So ultimately, like, no, we didn't have the things we needed, but I started to learn, like when we were supposed to be at Bella Thorne's house and I'm literally in this girl's living room, I'm like, where is Tana? We were supposed to be there an hour ago and this girl is asleep. I'm like, oh my God. But what could we have done that was, if I canceled the event, I'm the bad guy. Like, there was no outcome in my head that was not move forward, you know, like without, now it would be very different because I have fucking learned. But like, I would have to call Jordan and be like, can you call Tana? Like, am I supposed to go wake her up in her room? That's weird. I don't want to go in her room. Like, yeah, it was crazy. And like, I never expected the shit that happened to happen, but it did. And
was there ever a moment where you just had a straight up conversation with Tana, like, look, you need to stop tweeting, you need to stop speaking randomly about this without at least clearing things with us first? Because you're, at the end of the day, Tana is, because I get where, because there are certain things where it's like, oh, that was Tana, that wasn't me, and things like that. And I understand that. But at the end of the day, when you're running an event, and that's your figurehead of your event, and at the end, a lot of the advertising for this was done over Twitter and done by Tana. So as an attendee who, you know, may not be doing enough digging, like, I am supposed to believe everything she's saying because I'm not being told any different.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I can't remember if we ever had a conversation. A lot of it kind of, like, turned to blur, I think, due to, like, emotional distress. And I'm like, oh, my God, I just cannot keep reliving it. Because for a while, I would replay literally every scenario in my head and be like, what should I have done different? What could I have done different? Which is probably a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Like, long story short, it wasn't good for my mental health. So, like, shit has blurred together. I don't remember if I ever sat down with her or even had the opportunity and was like, you need to stop. I think I did at some point. She had like made a video that generated a link from like Forbes that was announcing Casey Neistat and all these creators. And I'm like, girl, I didn't even know they were coming. You gotta like give me a heads up at least. But ultimately I was like a minuscule part of Tana's attention until she got there, which is a day or 2 days prior to the event. And which like, I can't remember. I know I bought her a Hummer because she wanted a Hummer limo to come from her house to Anaheim. And I can't remember if that was like, if she went home and then took a limo the day of the event. I don't remember, but like, Tana
I think she stayed in, because I remember late, because I'm speaking specifically on the Shane Dawson side of things. She, at least the night of like the shutdown or the day after, she was still in Anaheim at the hotel or something. So I'm fairly certain they stayed in Anaheim, whether it was that hotel or a different one.
And like, long story short, again, Tana's not very easy to say no to. Or it wasn't at that point. I guess hindsight is 2020. But like, I know I sat down with Jordan at Playlist, which I don't remember when Playlist was in this timeline, but I remember sitting down with Jordan at Playlist and being like, are you going to help us? Or like, do you just want me to finance it? What do you want? And they like gave me nothing. Although
Yeah, speaking of financing, did Tana and her camp put in any money into this event or generate any sponsors?
No, not $1. Not $1. I will say Fanjoy probably came through Tana's relationship with like having their merch, but I reached out to Fanjoy because they were like, we want to coordinate merch, which I like put in the drive, the Fanjoy merch booth.
Okay. Yes.
And then I was like, why don't you guys sponsor this event? You can have exclusive merch rights, because I did not work with Fanjoy. I worked with District Lines, who is owned by AKT, which is the same owner as Playlist. So like my relationship was with a different merchandise company who I also was like, you guys can sponsor if you want. And he was like, yeah. Fanjoy ended up having like the best offer and wanted to be a part of it because they had Tana's merch. I think they had Dobrik's merch, several others. And so like through that's probably how that sponsorship came. But no, Tana did not put a single dollar into this outside of like her time and energy, which was frankly minuscule. Filthy Fangs, who was Bella Thorne's label, tried to take ownership of it and like make me fund it, but have them have ownership. I don't know. It became very weird. And then like, if you saw, well, I mean, you were at the event. Like we had all the signage. Jen literally came with a can of spray paint and spray painted their Filthy Fangs logo all over the backdrops and the signage that I had. So there was
a lot of them, yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? I woke up one morning to find spray paint all over the graphics. I was like, there was a very clear disconnect between like what Tana was telling Bella, what Bella was telling Jen, and our team. And our team is like looking to them to have answers. And at some point I was like, you guys should be working with us, not like against us or just aside from us. We need to know, Jen, like what you're doing. They showed up hours before the event started at like 1 a.m. Here comes Mod, Son, and Bella rolling up out of Jen's car, and they like build out the Filthy Fangs lounge. That shit was not even built until like an hour before the event. Like when I woke up that next day to go outside, they were still building it. And maybe that's why like Nick did not open the door. But
do you have any idea how much money Filthy Fangs made? Because I didn't even try to get in that room. I was like, there's too much other stuff to film for this video.
Did they make money? Like, I don't know. Did they make money? Were they charging for something?
Because from what I heard is they were charged to get into the room to meet Bella. But then they also potentially, it was that they were either charged to get in or they had to buy a piece of merch to meet Bella. And so they had to have made something because they were $100 t-shirts.
That is a money grab that I didn't even know that. Because like I would have been like, no, the whole point of this event is like you, just like any of our conventions, you buy one ticket, you get to meet everyone type thing. Not like Bella has her own little lounge. That was some shady shit that they apparently did. Which is news to me, but interesting to know. I would not have allowed that. I don't know if they made money outside of that. I know that like the whole relationship with them, Aaron Fuller, who dated Amari for a while, you know, Tana and Amari's relationship. So Aaron was with me last weekend in Vegas, and we were talking about this a little bit, and he was like, Yeah, well, obviously Bella and Tana don't speak anymore because Tana was playing Bella. Like, to Aaron's, allegedly, Tana is not bi. Like, all of these things that I did not know, but was like an observer of. I'm sitting on a couch with Bella and Tana, whom are two figures in the space. And I'm like, what do y'all want to do? What's your vision? What's this? And then Bella's like, we can do this, 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 and this. I'm like, okay, cool. How's this going to work? Like, I remember when we left Bella's house, I felt very uneasy. And I told Tana, I was like, if you want Bella to take this over, let her. Like, let Filthy Things take this because they're talking something very different than us. And they're like, they're a whole different, like, event structure. And I was like, if that's, go that route. She's like, no, I want you to do it. Bella's just going to go. Looking back on it, it probably should have recognized that Tana was probably manipulating Bella. And then, like, getting Bella to do things. No, they didn't do any, they didn't generate anything outside of, like, their name being there. No sponsorships, no cash. Filthy Things did not offer to give cash. I asked, I was like, do you guys want to be partners? Do y'all want to help split stuff? Because they're asking me to buy this, this, this. I'm like, bro, that's not, we don't need that. Why do we need a 20-foot unicorn in the living room when, like, we have more pressing things? Like, yeah. So a lot of things probably fell into place given, like, Tana was trying to give Bella expectations and this and that. And then, like, I'm walking into a room with my staff, and walks Bella Thorne's manager, who is like, you all work for me. And I'm like, girl, no, they don't. My staff is going to be very confused if you're telling them one thing and I'm telling them another. So, like, we need to figure it out. It wasn't until the very last day after it was canceled that I met Bella's manager for her human self. When she looked at me in the eyes and was like, I'm sorry this happened to you. I should have been more on your team. And I was like, oh, well, that was refreshing. Why have you been this whole time? You know, like, I will say that, like, Natalie, who was Bella Thorne's manager's assistant at the time, now, to my knowledge, represents Tana. And, like, I saw them, it's not like we don't see each other. I saw them at BOA. I was at BOA a couple weeks ago, and, like, Tana was there, Bella was there, Amari's there. It was Amari's birthday, and obviously I'm still friends with Amari, and he's, as soon as Tana leaves the table, they, like, wave me over to come give him a hug and say hi. And Natalie's like, get the fuck away. Natalie had been sweet up until that point. I don't know. It feels very, like, I don't know the word. Like, I was the person who needed to take this fall for them. And, like, it's caused a lot of a rift. I don't know. But,
I mean, I think for the industry, because I have a manager as well. And at the end of the day, with this industry in general, or even just in any industry, especially with one like the music industry, like, at the end of the day, when you're a talent, essentially, like, your manager does work for you. And so, like, I can understand why, like, Bella's manager at the time, like, you saw the shield drop or whatever, because it's like, yeah, she was being Bella's manager, you know, she was doing her job. But when you're saying that Tana was manipulating Bella potentially, and I'm not here to speculate on the relationship or anything like that.
Me neither. I just think that there should have been more community. Like, we should have all been partners, and
there should have been an open dialogue, is what I'm hearing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Even, like, prior to the event, 100%, and even after, it should have been like, Tana should have been in the room with us working on a solution. Here's what we can do. Here's an idea. Let's reschedule this. Honor everyone's tickets. Refund anyone who wants. Like, that should happen to Coachella. Like, there were options we had, but they did not want to do them, or, like, did not care to, which is fine. Even if it's me, I would have appreciated, like, the conversation about, like, we don't want to do this with you, but, like, we want to do a second one. Let's transfer tickets there. Like, something that could have not only negated, like, public opinion and like made it right to fans. It was just very like, this is me, this is what I want. But even prior, there was no communication that felt mutually like beneficial. I don't know. It felt very strange.
But as far as, because you mentioned you think Tana was probably telling Bella something, and then Bella was telling her manager something, and then that's where the disconnect is. But as far as the manipulation comment, I'm just trying to understand what your wording is essentially. Where do you think Tana was manipulating her as far as her involvement in Tanacon? Or
maybe, I don't know. I didn't even think about that until Aaron brought it up to me this past weekend. He was like, yeah, Tana was just manipulating Bella the whole time. And I'm sure Bella could speak on it.
But what could Tana get? I'm just, again, we're having a discussion. What could Tana really gain from doing that? At least putting you in the dark with that.
In regards to like, I think multiple facets. Bella and I, in the beginning, Tana had us like all in a group chat, and we were just kind of communicating. And I expected Bella to be, as Tana positioned it to me, like a partner whom wanted to help plan things, but then like didn't. And I would meet with Jen, Bella's manager, and then it would be a whole different conversation. And like, I was just like, okay, what? I'm not just here to pay for Filthy Things Lounge. Like, I don't know. Aaron, until he said that, I was like, maybe. But I don't know if it was in regards to the event or their relationship or just like, obviously Tana benefited a lot from Bella in terms of establishing a presence in the press and the media. Tana was just a YouTuber up until that point for the most part. And like, I think Bella really kind of helped push her along, but at expense to Bella too. Like emotionally, that's like, they don't speak for a reason. And even I think maybe Shane and I still talk, and I'm grateful for like everything that he was doing in that time. I do wish, like, I never had this conversation with Shane because it wasn't about that. He would text me privately and you know, I'm here for you, that kind of stuff. And we've talked a lot since everything's happened with him. I don't know. The entire situation with Bella and like Tana and Jen and this event felt weird from like day one. And I think you can kind of tell that in the Amazon doc. I'm like, so point being what? Like, you know, I don't know. It just felt very strange. And like, even when we went to their house, it was Tana and Bella sitting on each other's laps, goofing off, like playing around in the kitchen. And I'm like, me and Natalie and Jen are sitting here like, what are y'all, what's the plan here? Like, we're financing your convention. Can you give us some vision, some colors, like anything to help us plan?
Was the financing, at least on Tana's front, because so I understand that Filthy Things, Bella, her camp were like, oh, we want to have input, but like we don't want to actually be involved, essentially. But as far as, was there a conversation had with Tana and Jordan about financing at any point, or was it just like, oh, we'll figure it out?
In regards to
just like, for the event itself, like as in getting like, hey, we're putting Good Times is putting X amount of money in this. I'm putting X amount of money in this. What, like, we need to know what you guys are covering, or moving forward, we need to make sure that, you know, we're both taking on the risk. I
think like the conversations happened quick. And it was between two friends in the beginning. So like, I think I probably asked, do you want a contract at some point? And they were probably like, no, probably for reasons like this. But the plan was always, I could have more of a business conversation with Jordan than Tana. He just, for whatever reason, wasn't engaged. But like, the plan was always pay back what we spent on the event and invest into setting up Tanacon as its own entity, similar to Honor Playlist, and do New York. So that was always the plan. And we were like, afterwards, we're going to go through accounting together, see what we made, and then, you know, divert from there. And I think you hear me talk about it at some point in like the Amazon doc. I'm like, okay, we've almost recouped the cost on this part of the event, you know, so that like she has an idea of where we're at with cost versus, you know, analysis and income, and so that we can kind of literally plan out what the future of it looks like. But there was never a contract between us that outlined it. There should have been, and I should have pressed for it.
Was there any contract between you and Tana or Tana's team?
No. There was an agreement between like some of the sponsors in Good Times, and like Good Times' name was on everything. That's why like, to me, Tana, it just felt like it was us doing everything at Tana's behest, whether that was via tweet or whatever. And like, I didn't have a partner that I should have had looking back on it, you know? But no, there was never a contract. I think like there probably should have been. I regret not doing that. But again, I trusted Tana. I think she trusted me. We were just like two friends working on it. Something we were really excited about. And like, that part would come later kind of thing. But we were together enough to be like, this is the future of what we believe this vision to be. We wanted it to be different and wanted it to be a change. I mean, she's crying when she walks into Tanacon, which made me feel really happy because I'm like, oh my God, we got her dream right. Like, we were all excited. She had seen stage mock-ups and was so excited. So like, it was all from like a place of love. We never, ever, ever could have imagined this looking back. But not to say that there's That's like clearly not the case now. We do not speak. We don't speak. Obviously, she is trying to get the Tanacon trademark canceled. She tried to stop me from talking about it on Dr. Phil. There's
one
a
of
reason.
my because I did, like I mentioned that the ongoing litigation comment that you made, that was cut out and all of that. And so one of my subscribers is a lawyer or is in law school, and they were able to find their counterclaim basically that Tana's team had made, it looks like. And so there's something in
trademark.
Yeah.
I didn't. So my attorney was the one who submitted the trademark.
Yeah.
I did that for my mental health than anything. And we got the trademark. There's like a lot of trademark law is very interesting and very expensive. Like half of me for a while was like, I think I need to keep the name for my own mental health. I did not want Tanacon to ever happen because I think it would literally like negatively impact my emotional health, my career, like anything. And I didn't want that to happen. Now, I haven't responded to their last few pieces of the trademark
dispute
process. Yeah, which trademark law is civil. It's like I don't even go in front of a judge.
Yeah, no, I'm not expecting that I'm going to be wearing my Tanacon merch to a court hearing or anything. I'm not expecting that.
And I'm like, I don't think I have an intention to pay money to just like defend it. I wrote an initial response to that, which is, good times pay for everything. It was our event. It is our right to protect our interests. And obviously, like, the trademark court granted us the trademark, so they have to agree with your petition. Otherwise, they wouldn't grant you a trademark. I don't know that I care if she gets it canceled anymore. I'm like, really want to move on from it from like an emotional standpoint. I have a lot of things in my career that are not dictated by that. I can only say the truth so many times without it resonating, and Tana's painted me to be like this scam artist, scammed her and scammed everyone. No, girl, I literally was just trying to help you make your dream come true. Yeah, we all fucked up, but at the end of the day, what else can you do, besides apologize, refund tickets, and like unless Tana was like, let's do this to make it right, there's nothing else I could have done. I filed bankruptcy. So I don't know. I just kind of.
So even though you, let's say everything falls through, Tana with polls, whatever, where she's like, okay, hey, I'm on board. Let's do it again. Would you do another Tanacon?
Never the same way.
Well, I would expect that it would hopefully be different.
I would have contracts. I would be saying no. Everything that I learned, maybe. The answer is maybe. And I wouldn't do it without shame.
Okay.
And I would 100% not do it without shame. Shane's
involvement or Shane's attendance? Let me clarify.
Involvement.
That. Okay.
Involvement. And maybe even Bella too. I don't know. I feel like.
Oh, you want a kumbaya event? That's what it sounds like.
I'm like, it's not in my plan right now, or like my path. It's not my focus. It would probably trigger a lot emotionally, and I'd have to like think about it before it ever became anything. I have to think that everything happened for a reason. If it would have went well, I would have been in bed with Tana, who has proven herself time and time again to be someone I don't want to do business with. But I do want to make it right to the fans. That's why I continue to try to like say my truth and like show that I was not out here to scam anyone. Yeah, we fucked up. Yeah, I fucked up. Like, I'm so sorry. But at the end of the day, I didn't plan this shit to go on purpose. I did not take everyone's money and like file bankruptcy. That's not how it works.
You're not running out with a big sack that has a $$ sign on it. Like,
hell no. I fucking the polar opposite. Like in bankruptcy, I literally had to give my car up. I had to move. Like,
so can we discuss that a little bit? Because I do, though we talked about like Tanacon's trademark and all of that, Good Times Live was a limited liability company, correct? So was that in the liquidation for Good Times Live that the bankrupt took everything and then so it was like just you out of pocket trying to make up the difference, or?
So because of the loss that was like incurred, we did what my counsel advised and what is called Piercing the Corporate Veil. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Good Times had nothing to pay anyone because we just lost a fuck ton of money. I still had to pay, like, and I can put in this drive if you want. Like, I literally had to pay for the hotel, the security. Like, I had to pay everything prior to the event even started.
The vendors,
so at that point,
yeah.
I was like, there is no point. Good Times, even if Good Times files bankruptcy, that's not going to alleviate everything. I used my personal finance. So, Pierce the Corporate Veil, Michael Weist III filed bankruptcy, and I let Good Times administratively dissolve. So it doesn't exist. There was nothing, anyone could come back and say whatever against Good Times, because I just eliminated that and went straight, I'll take all responsibility and I'm going to file bankruptcy myself, which is obviously detrimental to your personal financial, like, for the next 7 years, that shit's on your credit. So
do you have like a credit score of like 3 right now or something?
Actually, it's back up to like over 700.
Oh,
but, like,
nice.
There's still not times in which I don't deal with Tanacon. Like,
yeah,
if I want to work with a new client, it comes up. Like, vendors, businesses, it comes up.
Well, at the end of the day, and that's why, like, in our emails before we agreed to do this, I explained why I think you could benefit from doing something like this, where at the end of the day, this is an event that is, I mean, within the last 4 years, still fairly recent. It was one of the biggest social media events and I guess failures, we'll use that word, in recent history. And, it's still in the current lexicon, essentially, and you're still working in this industry. So it would make sense to at least get your side and the details out, especially when I mentioned to you, me and every other attendee, every other person watching this is only dealing with the facts that we have been shown. And so, clarify.
And I never made a statement about it other than like what was said at the time, which was full of emotion and like very reactive. It wasn't until a mentor of mine who is very high up at a very large music company said, you should talk about it and set it straight, because I am in this industry. Like in my house, in the other room, there's literally 5 of my clients who all have over 2 million on TikTok. They know, like, we've had conversations about it. It's like, it's not going away.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I don't know, I couldn't talk about it, or I would just break down. There were nights that I sat crying in the closet with a shotgun. Like, how do I move forward from this? Like, it got real dark, and it should not have been. Not only was it a learning experience, which I could have never learned, like, if this didn't happen, it made me who I am. Like, I'm grateful for that part. But I also just, like, I don't know, I literally have to address it all the time. I still get hate comments about it. And it's like, no matter how many times I say, I'm sorry, or like, I didn't plan for you to get, not get allowed in, like, it doesn't matter when the favorite person in the world is telling them something else, and like, that's who they choose to believe. And at some point, like, being silent doesn't equate to like anything, plus I feel now comfortable enough to be able to like look back on it and not break down, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, in that same, like, if we look at literally any other industry, if I was a lawyer and I had a very high profile case fall through, I would have to, explain that to future clients and things like that. And that's just the reality of business and being a business owner and involved in business. Speaking of, Tana and, she's saying, or this public figure, I'm assuming you're referring to Tana, saying something different. Is there anything that she has said or had said previously that you blatantly call into question, or that you have any proof is false or anything like that? I mean,
there was a lot when it first happened that like instantly came to mind. Now it's just like, I know she said a lot of things that like weren't true. Even in like Shane's stuff, I'd have to probably go through it and like make a fucking timestamp notes that are like, that's not the case. But in the reality, the biggest thing is like, people still call me like a Segway scammer and all of this shit.
Oh yeah,
like,
we're gonna get to the Segway. Don't worry.
It makes me laugh now in a way, because like I know the truth and that's ultimately all that matters. But the biggest thing was like, my intention was not some evil conspiracy where I'm gonna walk away from this taking everyone's ticket money. That's like literally impossible, like impossible. And people failed to even allow me the opportunity to just like say, sorry, I fucked up. I know, trust me, girl, I know. But like, it went beyond, like, people would send death threats to my parents, to my house, like shit you probably can't even imagine, simply because of a mistake that I made out of actually good intentions. Yeah, I fucked up 100%. And I recognize that. I own that. Wish I could make it right. I tried to do anything that I could to make it right. The biggest thing I think is just like understanding that all of us on social media, even outside of myself, are like growing up and learning in front of the world, especially now. And the more it becomes pop culture, the more that's going to happen. And one thing I cannot stand is like cancel culture. I've seen people whom I care about be canceled, and like they're learning, everyone's learning and evolving. And if society does not allow human beings the opportunity to grow, what does that say about humanity? That is not good. Like it's really, really bad, especially when like it's starting to get to a point in social media in which like young girls are getting, like, no one should be taking their life over a comment on Instagram. That is like not okay. Social media, I don't know if you've seen the documentary The Social Dilemma, but it's a great film. I recommend anyone watch it. The director is actually the guy who presented our award at Sundance for Jawline. Like, I have become very inspired since all of this to create advocacy for those. Like, there's no protection for creators, even those that I represent. There's no any sort of congressional leadership that represents us. I think like when I started in this industry, there were not reporters at the New York Times writing about influencers. We were just like figuring out this space and moving on where it was going. And as it's getting more mainstream, I think it's important that like those with a voice and those in a position should, I don't know, influence others into like the betterment of social. Because there was a time in which it was a safe space. People went to it for comfort, went community. Now it's like drama filled. Let's just cancel this person because it's funny and entertaining. That's like not a good, that's very dystopian when you think about it. When like, yeah, I mean, it's affecting elections. It's affecting the political strife between human beings simply because of misinformation on the internet. Like, it's crazy that, so as someone who's like been a part of it, I don't feel comfortable not saying anything anymore and watching people that I care about just like having no option simply because society doesn't let them, or, you know, whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, personally for me, in the regards to people being young on the internet, I'm of the belief that children and family channels and such and underage influencers should have Google accounts or Coogan accounts, however you pronounce it, because they're, especially with all these family channels like the Ace family filing for lawsuits and the like, and these children are, you know, being used for advertisements and all of that, and they're getting none of the money for college.
Fucking crazy. And, you know, I think that's something I've talked about. I don't know if you've like kept up with my personal kind of journey right now, but like I did an interview with Dateline and To Catch a Predator's Chris Hansen. Him and I talked extensively about this earlier this week. I represented Danielle Cohn, who has lied about her age, and her mother, Pink tweeted about Piper Raquel this week. Like, it's crazy to see the direction that social is taking the youth of America and like indoctrinating an entire generation into this disbelief, regardless of my personal experience or what people want to say about me. It's not okay that little girls are committing suicide because of a notification on their phone. Like, that is not okay. And if I would have not been as like, I don't know, supported or strong as I was in that moment, it would have been a very different situation. And I would have not been able to see past like the fucking fallout in front of my face, which is terrifying to think. I was young then and still am young, but like, imagine if what would have happened to me would have happened to a 12-year-old on TikTok who got canceled for posting a video that she didn't know was wrong because she never had proper parenting or whatever. And like, that's scary to think about, that's starting to happen.
There's also in that, I don't want to, I'll defend parents for a second. But in that regards, I mean, I think there's also still, because they're, still so many parents are still so, I don't want to say naive is the word I guess I can use.
That's true though. It's true. Yeah.
So it's not even less so like, oh, I don't know what my kids are doing online. It's that I don't know what I need to be aware of what my kids are doing online in a sense. So yeah.
And that comes from like people like you, me, Tana, Shane, whomever, having this conversation because the children are watching, their parents are probably seeing videos here and there. Like if no one talks about it, it's never going to change. And then we're going to be in this dystopian future where everyone's defining self-worth by how many followers and how many likes and like very Black Mirror. That's not okay with me. Like, I really don't think that we should be determining a human being's self-worth by what others on the internet say and by how many likes you're getting. And that's something that I struggled with for a long time due to like all of this. And
how do you feel about this being as someone who, I mean, you are involved in the influencer industry. I mean, you do make your money from the influencer industry. How does that impact your feelings on, you know, like you said, you were representing Daniel Cohn for a little bit. And, you know, I'm sure you've worked with other minors in your job and things like that.
I think it makes me now recognize situations and like want to do something about it and empower me to do something. There are, how do I put this? So let's just use Danielle for an example. Young, ambitious Michael might have overlooked something I noticed for career value, for whatever that may be. Now I would never do that. And I'm grateful for this, for teaching me that. But I know that there are still a lot of managers out there in this space, and not even managers, business associates, even platforms who like will do nothing simply because it's to their financial gain. But like we all have a responsibility here, and outside, it's like at great personal expense. Like Danielle, for example, I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of money on legal fees. I'm gonna, you know, I had a Netflix deal for her that I turned away. It's not worth it. It's not worth the money. It's like not anymore. And like no part of me, I'm literally so grateful that Tanacon happened because I don't know if I'd be the same person that I am now. And now looking at it, I can recognize and not only see other people who are like deliberately ignoring facts and seeing what's happening for a paycheck and like career, I want to say political gain, but like career gain. And that's crazy to me. So I think seeing that and having the role I have gives me an ethical, moral responsibility to do something, to say something, to raise awareness and encourage others to do the same thing. Whether that's lobbying in Congress for legislation, if that's, you know, I wanted to start a foundation that covers creators' legal fees because these kids, a lot of times they're just gaining millions of followers overnight and like cast into this stardom per se and have no coaching, no protection from the government, no platform advocacy. Like it's crazy. And it's like turning children into commodities that is very, very, very dark and dystopian when you think about like America is literally turning their youth into a money sign and parents are not, some parents are just like, cool, thank you, give me that paycheck. But it's crazy to see. And I know I have a responsibility to do something about it. And thus here we are. That's why I like spoke up about Danielle. That's why I'm, you know, talking to my attorney. That's why I called the DA. Like, I think everyone has a responsibility. And if we don't recognize that, who knows where we'll be.
I wanted to end on this note because I think it's a more fun topic. We got to talk about the Segway because where is it from? Do you still have it? Why did you choose a Segway? That'll do it. Like, that's how I'll get around the event.
You know, it's interesting that you asked it because everyone always asks you, whether it's like, a fan just wanting to have something to talk about or whatnot. Nick Swinson, the director of events, was the person who was like, let's get Segways. Here's the price. I'll call the rental company, whatever. I signed off on them. In hindsight, it was a
How much did you... Wait, now I need to know the Segway budget. Sorry, I'm going to keep cutting you off.
I wonder if I can find it. It wasn't much. It was like a couple $1,000s, like under $3,500 for sure, for like the whole week. Because we had them before the event started too. Simply to like get around. The entire exec team had them, but they were all rented. Funny enough, I like wrecked mine the first day very viciously, tumbled it, it went in the air, hubcap flew off. Jeez. It was crazy. But they were all rented and like, you know, if you go to Playlist, a lot of the execs are on them. If you go to VidCon, everyone's on them. Tana had all of us go to VidCon on Segways, which I got banned from
like
VidCon.
Like a biker gang? Jesus.
Literally. Like we all had to segue over to VidCon. So it's kind of funny that moment became so meme worthy, but it was just like, here is your segue, Michael, get around the event more easily. And like, it is what it is. But yeah, no, I don't have them. I have trauma from them and have never ridden one ever
Probably
since.
smart, because the creator of Segway died while riding a Segway. So
really?
He rode it off
dangerous.
He rode it off a cliff.
Oh my God. They're really hard to like slow down. Just like lean back. And so mine was speeding up and I'm leaning back and then it just kept speeding up and then I just bailed and that's when I betrayed. But like they're dangerous as fuck. And it was helpful at the event, although, you know, it is what it is, I guess. It became an iconic moment that was not meant to be. Thank you for chatting with me. I appreciate you.
Thank you for being open to a discussion and, you know, just taking the time to speak with me. Because I will say that your whole demeanor this whole time has been much more, I don't want to say relaxed, but just more open than I've seen you in literally any other interview you've done about Tanacon. So I do appreciate that.
Of course. And I appreciate you allowing me to be open. I would have had a very different response on like Dr. Phil if it would have been like that, you know? So I think a lot of times people come in with an agenda and that dictates how I respond to things. But I appreciate you allowing me to have this opportunity. I'm happy to chat if you have any questions, you know. Good luck in your own private endeavors. If I could ever be of value, feel free to reach out, but we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you. And that was my conversation with Michael Weist. So like I said, no big gotcha moments. We just literally went through the timeline of Tanacon in the Dr. Phil episode and broke things down, talked about a variety of stuff. And that's really going to be it. Do I think there's going to be another Tanacon? Maybe if pigs fly or hell freezes over and then defrosts. That's when I think there would be another Tanacon. But maybe you have a different opinion. Do you think there's going to be another Tanacon? Do you think there's going to be more events in general because of COVID? VidCon got canceled. Who knows what's next? Do you think the Dr. Phil show will ever send me a cease and desist for literally anything I've said about the Dr. Phil show? Because I'm still waiting for one. I haven't gotten one. But let me know. Comment down below. Another reminder, I have a podcast, the Swell Shenanigans podcast. It'll be listed down below if you'd like to go check that out. I also have merch like that super fun mug back there, also listed down below. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. And if you'd like to follow me on all my social media, that'll be all up here. And once again, I just want to say thank you to Michael for even just agreeing to have this conversation with me. I know when people are critical of you, he would not have been the first person to just go ahead and block me. So the fact that he was even open to having a conversation with me, I do respect that and I do want to acknowledge that. And yeah, that's going to be it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. Thank you, Allie, Alan, Alexis, Braden, Cameron, Christopher, Chris, Cody, Colton, Crash, PC, Destiny, Devin, Dirty One, Don, Elliot, Evan, Feckles, Hopeless, Hollow, Jekka Ray, Joe, John, M, Jordan, Joseph, Kenny, Kevin, Kim, Kristen, Lex, Lisa, Lamb, Luis, Manga, Matt, O, Matthew S, Mimo, The Red, Michael, Michael J, Name, Nathaniel, Pat, Penn, Pralek, Rob, Robert, Ross, Sam, Skylar, Simon, Tasha, Timothy, Tom, Wendy, Williams, Endry.